Western Family Grief Center kind of came out of my own pain as a child. Is losing my parents young. My father died first as a teenager. It was interesting. Someone put a picture of me on Facebook that was when I was in the newspaper, and it was like 3 weeks before my father died. And looking at my expression on my face and how I felt afterwards, the trauma, I can kind of see that none of that was there. And I often tell people the last day of my childhood was the day my father died. But out of my pain came my passion to do what I do. And that's important. I think all of us have passion because we've experienced a loss and we know how important it is to work through our grief. And my goal has always been to grow in our grief. And it becomes a time where we're able to kind of work with these kids and work with these families, and it's interesting because we're able to see them grow. We're able to see them change as they come in, and they struggle with whether or not this is the place to be, and it's scary even they think to come. But the kids soon find out that this is not a sad place, this is a very happy place. Children are able to meet other kids that have lost loved ones, and they realize that I'm not alone in my grief. Other families begin to realize that there are other people out there that share their pain. And we don't do counseling, we do peer support.
We knew what it was all about, we knew what it was like, and we knew what they did was good. So not long after our son died, we got our grandkids involved in the grief center because we knew it was the right thing to do. I always try to encourage people to get into it right away. You don't have to wait. It certainly helped our grandkids because they had an opportunity to talk to other kids in the same similar situations, which is the big thing that it's all about, that peer support. And they could feel comfortable to talk to people other than family members about things that were going on. So it was really good for them. It was good for us too. I mean, we'd already been there and knew the kind of things that adults talked about while the kids are in their sessions, but it's just always good when you're in the middle of something like that. Sometimes you forget the things that you know, and so it was good to be in that group and hear the others and talk about what you were going through as well. It's always good to talk.
You're not going to do it on your own. You need that peer support. You need the group setting. You need to be able to talk with other people and get it out. And that was a difference for me. I mean, I knew all the right things, but it was so much better just to be a part of that, to be able to express it and then hear things back from other people and their point of view, and that's what made it good.
One of the best ways to truly understand the importance of the program and what our program means to both the kids, the teens, and adults that attend this program is to actually hear it through the words of one of our kids that attended. So I wanted to take the opportunity to read a letter from one of our teens that attended the program. I lost my mother in an accident in 2006. A couple months after she passed, my dad suggested we both go to the West Virginia Family Grief Center. At first, I was pretty nervous. I hadn't really talked to any of my classmates or friends about my mom's death, and I often felt awkward talking to counselors. However, upon arriving and receiving a warm welcome from the staff, I felt a little better. It's hard to talk to someone who's grieving if you haven't experienced the loss of a close loved one yourself. Most of my peers avoided saying anything about it, or even bringing up their moms at all, because they feared I would be easily upset by it. This wall that existed between me and other people was broken at the grief center. Everyone was grieving the death of a loved one in some way. A lot of them felt detached like I did. Some were angry, others scared, depressed, or unsure of how to handle the situation. Seeing other people dealing with grief, even if they felt differently than I did about it, helped me feel not so alone. When I was at school, I didn't want to talk about my mom's death. There may have been people at my school also in the midst of grief, but how could I have ever known? At the time of the death, my 10-year-old brain came to the conclusion that I must have been the only person at school who suffered the loss of a parent. Obviously, this was not true. In fact, most of the people at the grief center were about my age. I quickly made friends with some of the other people in my group, and our bond was strengthened by the connection between us. Contrary to what some people may think, the Grief Center is a cheerful and lively place. We can talk grief, emotions, everyday troubles, and even things like suicidal thoughts without having to worry about unfair judgment. The West Virginia Family Grief Center encourages understanding, which I think is something that most people in the midst of grief long for. I would also like to say that the staff at the Grief Center don't treat people like customers, but rather like people. Grief is a lifelong process. In fact, the first year after my mom's death, I felt relatively okay. But around age 13, I suddenly felt as though it had happened all over again. I started to think about it more, and it actually bothered me more than it used to. Grief isn't a cold that someone just gets over. It follows you for the rest of your life. That's why I think the people at the Grief Center offer one of the best solutions. A place where people can return to time and time again and talk with people who will listen. I think the Grief Center is a very important part of my life right now. Since the death of my mom, I've still had a hard time dealing with life without her. Each week I look forward to the Grief Center, as I know many other people do. It keeps me going, and it gives me something to be happy about, even when I'm out feeling my worst. So one of the other things that we provide with the Grief Center is we offer a dinner to all of our families before we break into different groups for the night. One of the nice things about dinner is that it's that one night a week that you don't have to try to figure out what you're going to make. You can know that you're coming to the Grief Center and that's already going to be thought about for you. The other thing is it gives families an opportunity to sit down one night a week and have dinner together in a different environment, not a lot of pressure or stress, and they can just come sit down and eat. A lot of times families just don't get the opportunity to do that. In addition, after there's been a death, a lot of times to sit down at a table where there is an empty chair can be really difficult. And so families will kind of be running all over the place, or a lot of times families don't get that opportunity to sit down together. So being able to come to the Grief Center, have dinner, have that community with each other, it's just a no pressure way to spend some time together and finding that new normalcy in the family that might have been missing and has been hard to reattain.
I've seen families come where you've been able to see them over time to kind of progress and kind of work through their grief, and you can see their countenance change and the look on their eyes change, and those are the positive things because I can see how they're doing. And sometimes they don't necessarily think they're going somewhere, and I think, yeah, no, I can see progress. You're doing better.
The adults have support as well when they're there, but it's for the kids. But the kids would come in and say, I want to come here because I want to help my mom, or I want to help my dad, or whoever the adult is. And of course, the adult was always saying, "I'm
They're there
bringing
for the kids."
So it's interesting how that works. I think it's good that both sides felt they were helping each other just by coming to the Grief Center. We're really lucky to have it. And when you're in the middle of grief, you get lost sometimes, and it just is a way for you to sort of sit down and catch your breath and think about what you're going through and hear what others have to say, and it's good for the town. It's good for us to have one. I'm very glad that we do.
I think the biggest thing that they offer is support. You're not alone. You're not going through this alone. You're not the only one in this circumstance or situation, and sometimes in grief that's the way you feel. And so I think support is the biggest thing that they offer. In addition, next to it is the comfort. You feel comfortable being there. You feel accepted there, just as you are, regardless of circumstance. You're not judged in any way, and so that helps in expressing the grief.